Hello, YouTube, and welcome to the second installment of the weekly Touchdown, my football podcast, American football NFL podcast. I guess that's what you call this. I, I know it's not been a week, and I call it the weekly Touchdown, but hey, we're just starting, so let's go ahead and go with it and see what happens. Before I get started, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and giving us a listen. I really appreciate the support for the first one. I was really kind of surprised at how well that was received. I hope we can do the same with this one. This week, or this episode, I'm going to be talking about the Carolina Panthers. I live about 2 hours from Charlotte, so this is a team that I watch quite a bit. But before we do that, I just kind of want to answer some questions some people ask on episode 1 about the Browns, and we'll kind of address those things, and we'll get into talking about the Panthers. First off, I had Gordon Bell, who made quite a few comments on there, said that Patriots fan said he's really liking what they're doing, and the Patriots are the Patriots. Bill Belichick is probably the best manager of the game and man management person there is, and any kind of trades with him, you're going to pay a price. I mean, that's just the way it is. But he's talking about how well they're doing, and then made a comment about the Browns with the quarterback situation. And I don't want the Browns to trade to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I said, Belichick is a master at this. He's going to bleed the Browns dry because he knows it. This quarterback class coming out in the draft is not that strong, which means that Garoppolo is going to be getting a big price if he does move. I think the Browns just sit on this one. Getting a quarterback is not going to save that team. There's too many holes there, and I don't think it's long term. It's going to help the team that much. I say address the other issues. Get a solid line in place, get a solid young defense in place. Next year, the draft class coming out of college is huge. It's deep. It's strong. Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Kaiser, Mitch Trubisky out of UNC. I'm not really sold on them as NFL caliber quarterbacks. I haven't seen it. So I'm fine with them to ride it. I was also asked by DJ my thoughts on Miami. I think Miami's going to shock a lot of people this year, and hopefully I can learn to talk in the process. Maybe that's what we'll do is we'll try to get DJ on here. He says he's a Miami fan, and get him to talk a little bit about the Dolphins. But I think they're going to surprise. I think Adam Gase, I believe, the coach they've got there, this is his second year. They had some personnel turmoil the year before. I think he's going to get this team kind of refocused and re-energized, and it's gonna be a positive thing moving forward for the Dolphins. I would not be surprised to see them in the mix in the AFC East. I don't think they're going to challenge the Patriots, but I could see them getting into a wild card spot. Another question I was asked was about Tony Romo and Colin Kaepernick. I was just watching the NFL Network this morning. They were talking about Romo, and my gut feeling is telling me he's going to maybe ride this year as a backup in Dallas, and then the next thing you know, he's going to be coaching somewhere. I don't see him going anywhere. It's kind of the same thing with Brock Osweiler, and you've got to have somebody willing to eat his cap numbers, and I just don't see that happening. I may be wrong on that, but there doesn't seem to be any interest. There doesn't seem to be any discussion about him going anywhere, so I just don't see a big move coming there. And he's happy in Dallas, and I think anybody's going to take a real stretch on him if they try to sign him because of his back problems. He's 2-3 years in a row now had back problems, and you don't want a quarterback in there that has to try to scramble and gets hit in the back and goes down, and you lose your franchise quarterback. Colin Kaepernick right now is toxic. He's kind of like Ray Rice was a few years ago, the running back out of Baltimore. He's be a huge distraction, and I think it was Gordon said in the comments on the last episode that Joe Thomas, the starting left tackle for the Browns, said he's going to be a locker room distraction, and I just don't think anybody wants to take that on right now. Jim Harbaugh of Baltimore says that John Harbaugh, one of the Harbaugh brothers, whoever the coach of Baltimore, says that he can see him starting somewhere, he can win games, but at what cost? And I don't see anybody right now in the NFL ready to sign him. Do I think they will? Yeah. I mean, the NFL's proven that they will accept behavior in players to win games, and I have a problem with that. That's a whole other issue. But I think Kaepernick will end up playing somewhere. The question at this point is I don't know where. I think if he gets signed, it's going to be after the draft. because that's when teams are really going to be looking at holes to fill. And I was also asked about the recently announced move of Los Angeles Raiders to Las Vegas. I'm really torn with this one. I'm a traditionalist by nature, and the Raiders have been the Oakland Raiders, the Los Angeles Raiders. They've always been in the Bay Area, in that region, and to move them to Vegas, yeah, you're going to tap into a new fan pool there. But I'll tell you, the Raiders fans are the most hardcore fans I have ever seen in my life, and I can see a lot of the fans turning their back on the Raiders because of this. Because you kind of think about it with European football. If you have a team that's just been awful, and all of a sudden it would be kind of like Leicester after they won the Premier League last year, to turn around and say, okay, wow, we won. Now we're going to move to Scotland because we won and we can get more money there. And that's the Raiders fans have suffered for about 15 years with crappy teams, and they're finally getting a core of a really good team there, and they just up and move. And one of the talking heads on the NFL Network this morning said that in the payout that came out last year from the NFL's TV contracts, the owners got $53 million apiece. So it's not like they're hard up for cash. And with Raiders fans, even when they were awful, just kind of like with Browns fans, those stadiums were full. And I just don't see how this is going to be better for the NFL as a whole. You got to have some loyalty to your fans there. And to me, that was just a real slap in the face to the Raiders fans for putting up with all the crap that they did. And now that they're finally starting to move things in a positive direction for that franchise, they pick it up and move it to Vegas. Who knows, in 20 years we could see that I was wrong on this, but I just see for the fans this was a bad move. One other one nobody's asked me about, and I'm just going to throw out there, is Adrian Peterson, running back for the Vikings. He's unsigned right now. And from the talk that I'm hearing, what I'm reading, part of the problem is he's asking for $8 million. Now, according to him, that's not true. I still think he's got some gas in the tank. I don't think he's going to be the premier running back he was 3-4 years ago. Taking a year off because of his suspension obviously is going to impact that. But I do think that he's going to end up getting signed somewhere else. And he's got another good year left in him, I think. Not the 1,800-yard caliber that he had, but I think he can definitely contribute positively to a team and maybe help them win some games. Keep the questions coming, guys. I love those things. I enjoy, obviously, talking about this. So put some more down in there in the comments for me. Ask me some more. Send them to me on Twitter. I'm happy to get them. Now I'm going to kind of switch gears and talk about the Carolina Panthers. I live in Carolina. I've been to a couple Panthers games. I watch them on TV. It's kind of the team that I've adopted since I live here. I've lived here over 15 years. And at the end of the 2016 season, everybody was thinking, and myself, wow, 15-1, came close in the Super Bowl. They're going to come back. They're going to be a powerhouse again, and they flopped. I mean, they just fell completely apart. Part of it was injuries. Part of it was pride, I think. Part of it was off-field distractions. Luke Kuechly, the middle linebacker they have, which is a phenom, I mean, a tackling machine, signs a huge contract extension. The next game he gets a concussion. He's out. He comes back for a couple games, gets another concussion. He's out. So that kind of messes up the dynamics of the team. As far as losses from free agency, they lost some older players, which is not that big of a deal. They lost Teddy Ginn, a wide receiver out of Ohio State, had been with them for a few years, had a great couple years, went to Arizona, flopped, came back, had a great year last year, ends up signing with New Orleans. Philly Brown, another receiver from Ohio State, good slot receiver for him, ends up signing with Buffalo. The Panthers lost their defensive coordinator, Sean McDermott. He's now the head coach in Buffalo. So those kind of changes are going to be an issue. They did have some huge signings, though. They also released probably one of my most favorite players, I got to admit, the fullback Mike Tolbert. I mean, I called him the fire plug. He 250 pounds, about 5'10", and I mean, he was just like a bowling ball. He would hit everybody and everything. And he was released. It was more of a salary move than anything else, and I believe he's been signed by Buffalo. They also released defensive tackle Paul Soleil, 32, I believe, kind of on the end of his career. So those were the losses they had. They did re-sign. I did a free agent signing on a guard, Amine Solite. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. They put the franchise tag on defensive tackle Kwan Short, who is a stalwart in the middle of that defensive line. They signed a bunch of extensions: defensive end Wes Horton, defensive end Mario Addison, safety Collins Jones, wide receiver Bretton Burson, defensive end Charles Johnson, running back Fozzie Whitaker. They then turn around and they just recently signed a one-year extension with Jonathan Stewart, which is bringing up another dynamic questioning about, are they going to draft a running back with their number 8 pick in the first round? And I've seen a lot of mocks on that. I'm not really sold on the guys. They keep throwing the names out there. Leonard Fournette out of LSU, if he's available, I think he'd be a good running back. The kid out of Florida State, I'm not too sold on. But they did go in and they signed, as far as free agents, they were very active in the free agent market. They signed safety Mike Adams to come in and help Kurt Coleman. They signed wide receiver Russell Shepard out of Tampa Bay, a speedster. They also signed wide receiver Charles Johnson, guard Chris Scott, defensive tackle Kyle Love, cornerback Teddy Williams. So they brought in some age, they brought in some stability. I left off 3, and I'm going to address those real quick. They also brought back Captain Munnerlyn, a defensive back who plays nickel. He was with Carolina for about 4 years. 2 years ago, he left as a free agent, went to Minnesota, and he's back, which I think is going to be huge for that defensive backfield. They need some stability in there. They also brought back defensive end Julius Peppers. I think they signed him to a $3.5 million one-year contract. Julius Peppers is 38, but he's still productive. He's a situational rusher. He can put pressure on a quarterback, and that's what we see with the Panthers. They do a lot of defensive line rotation. Gettleman, the general manager, David Gettleman, is really big on having a deep defensive line rotation, and Julius Peppers is going to do that. The other guy that they signed is Matt Khalil. He's an offensive tackle. He's projected to play left tackle. He's the brother of center Ryan Khalil. Left tackle, we've still got a starting left tackle on the roster, Michael Orr. If you've ever seen the film Blindside, that's who he's about. The reason it's called Blindside is for a right-handed quarterback, when he drops back into the pocket and turns to throw the ball, his blind hot side behind him is the left tackle. He has to protect that blind side of the quarterback, because the quarterback, unless he's got an extra set of eyes, can't see who's coming behind him. And Michael Orr did a great job for 2 games. He did really good in 2015, came in 2016. 2 games, he got a concussion. I read in the newspaper this morning, he's still out in concussion protocol, which I have never seen an NFL player be out more than a couple months. So they keep saying he's making progress. I don't see him coming back. I mean, you don't be out 8 months on concussion protocol, still having issues, and come back from that. Fantastic player, nice guy. I don't see him coming back. But bringing in Matt Khalil, that's going to provide that stability, I think, on the left side for the offensive line and for Cam Newton. Cam Newton, I just saw the other day, had surgery on his shoulder. He's expected to be back for the OTAs, for the opening of training camp. He's not going to be throwing until probably the preseason. They said they're not going to let him throw, but they think he'll be back for preseason okay. So they've got the pieces in place, again, to fix this. They've got 2 major issues. They're going to have to look at wide receivers. They just triggered the extension on Kelvin Benjamin, his 5th-year option on that. But they've got to get somebody to play that slot, which I'm hoping that Russell Shepard, give him that speed, is going to be able to do that, or possibly the other wide receiver they signed, Charles Johnson. Because they lost Philly Brown and Teddy Ginn, who kind of filled those roles for him. Defensive backs are a disaster. They let Josh Norman go last year in free agency, just kind of out of the blue. They played 2 starting rookies, and it showed. They got torched deep. One of the guys they had playing back there, Brendan Wickery, was cut halfway through the season. So anyway, that is my ramble about the Carolina Panthers. Oh, one other thing I forgot. They traded defensive end Coney Ely, 23, 24-year-old defensive end, to the New England Patriots And basically, what the Panthers did is they moved up 8 draft picks. Not sure what Gettleman's thinking there, but that kind of tells you how tough it is to trade with Belichick. You give up a rotational defensive end, and you move up not from the second to the first round, but from the third to the second round, from low in the third round or from 8th pick in the third round to the last pick in the second round. So it's not a massive move. So I'm just kind of curious who he's targeting with that. But anyway, there it is, the Carolina Panthers free agency moves, getting everything set up. Folks, I hope you like what I'm doing with this. I enjoy talking about the NFL. Keep the questions coming. If you like this conversation, like what I'm doing, hit a like down there. If you have never subscribed to my channel before, and hopefully one of these days I'll learn how to say that word, and you have not done so before and you like this, go ahead and hit a subscribe down there. But either way it goes, I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.